Okay, this week's Parsha, Parshas Bechukosai, the final Parsha in the book of Vayikra, Chazak, V'nis Chazek, the final Parsha, deals with a portion of the Torah called the Tochacha, the warning of the curses that will befall the Jewish people if they don't adhere to the mitzvos and the Torah. Some define it as the admonitions, as the curses, the warnings of the curses, but it's a set of very, very scary group of psukim, many of them which are repeated in a parsha in Sefer Devarim, Kisavo. There's 40 or so in our parsha, 98 in Parshas Kisavo, for a total of well over 100. And they're hard just to read, let alone to hopefully never experience. But just to say it over, we were learning together, my chavrusas and I, and it's painful to hear. Immediately following that parsha, that section is a parsha called Erchin, or some call it Arachim, which literally translated means value. What's that all about? This parsha of Erchin, which there's a tractate in Masechta and Mishnayos and Gemara which deals with this topic exclusively, is the idea is the amount or the value one can donate to the Beis Hamikdash, to the temple, based on his own value, or her own value. So we're not going to go into the details, but every person, ranging from a young child, a young infant, to an older person, both male and female, have a biblically defined value. And when a person says, my value should go to the temple, so we have to look into the Torah. How much is that person valued in the eyes of the Torah? It doesn't necessarily mean how much they're going to be sold for on the open market, nothing like that. But however the Torah defines the value, again, not our topic tonight, but that will be the value that he or she will be obligated to give over to the temple. It ranges anywhere from 3 shkalim for a young girl to 50 shkalim for a grown man. It comes to a total of 143. So whenever we have a parsha like this, we have a parsha that deals with tochacha, with curses, with terrible things that could hopefully never befall the Jewish people, and immediately following that we have something that seems totally irrelevant, the parsha of the topic of donating, sponsoring money to the Beis Hamikdash based on one's value that the Torah defines for him. We always try to find some sort of connection, and the commentators always try to find what's the connection between the curses at the beginning of the parsha, which take up the large chunk of the parsha, and the parsha that immediately the topic that immediately follows it, which is this topic of tzedakah, of giving charity, so to speak, to the Beis Hamikdash. So the Baal HaTurim, he says one idea. He says he counts that there are 45 curses in this parsha. Some count 49, he counts 45. He says if you take the 45 and you add that to the 98 in Parshas Kisava, which is the other parsha that has these curses, or similar curses, it's a total of 143. So he says that there's 143 curses, and we know that there's a teaching in the sages, tzedakah tatzal mimavas, that tzedakah, giving charity, saves us from death, saves from death. Now, he says, therefore, a person who pledges symbolically, but no one person could give all 143. Every person has a different value that they are equal in the eyes of the Torah. But if you symbolically, these 143 curses, and if you add up all the different numbers, he says, of the different values for the different types of people, it also equals 143. As if to say that the tzedakah, the charity that one gives to the Beis Hamikdash or to any cause, will spare oneself from the 143 curses that it says in the Torah. That's what he says, more of a hint, a more of a cute connection between these two seemingly unrelated topics. But the other topic, the other connection, the other answer, is a topic that I once heard from Rabbi Fran, whose sefer we learn every week. Not in this sefer, but I actually heard it from him in a shir many years ago, and he said a pshat, he said a interpretation from a Moshe Sherer. Moshe Sherer was the president of Agudas Israel of America for many, many years. He passed away about 20 or so years ago. I actually think it was just recently his yard site. And he said an unbelievable thing. He says when you when you talk to a frum Jew, to a religious Jew, many times you'll hear the words from his or her mouth. You'll hear the words Baruch Hashem, Emirza Hashem, Bechaste Hashem, Hashem's kindness, Hashem's graciousness, and similar phrases that portray a strong feeling of connection to Hashem. And even from little young children you hear it nowadays. But the question arises, is this something that's inherently part of them? Are they really, when they say Baruch Hashem and they saying, or Hashem will help, are they really focusing on Hashem and thinking that Hashem is really helping them every step of the way? Or is it just sort of lip service, and that's how it became second nature to them to say such a thing, but they don't really understand what it means, and they don't really believe that Hashem is with them every step of the way through thick and thin. So he said, or Moshe Sher said, that the true test, the true value of a person, and we should never have to experience such things, but the true value of a person, to know if they're really on that lofty level of meaning every word they say when they mention God, is if they experience terrible hardships, things that are unfathomable, things that are impossible to almost describe and imagine that could happen to a human being, let alone a entire group of people. And still, despite all that, they're still singing the praises of Hashem, and saying, B'chaste Hashem, everything is great, this happened for a reason, that happened for a reason, I could grow from this, this is God's plan, and they're still uttering those words constantly from their lips. That shows that that person is truly in 100% belief of Hashem, and he realizes that Hashem is with him every step of the way. He was referring to the Holocaust. He himself was not a Holocaust survivor, but he was referring to those Holocaust survivors who, despite what they went through, they didn't throw off their Yiddishkeit, and they were able to rebuild and to stay with their faith through the most unfathomable and terrible situations and circumstances. There's a famous story told of the Satmar Rav Yoel Teitelbaum, who lived in Brooklyn, but he went to Israel several times, and after what ended up being his last visit to Israel, his Hasidim in Israel, in the land of Israel, said to him, Rabbi, when you leave, who's going to give us blessings? And who are we going to go to for advice? Who are we going to go to for encouragement and for blessings? And he said, go into shul in the morning and find a man who's wrapping his tefillin over a numbered arm. He has numbers tattooed on his arm. And he says, a person who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and he's still wearing tefillin every single morning, that's the one who you should be getting a bracha from. You don't need me to get a bracha. You go to that person and get a bracha from them. That person is worthy of giving brachos. So the true measure, says Rabbi Scherer, the true measure of a person's erech, of a person's value, can only be determined after he or she survives a period of life similar to those described in the Tochacha in this week's Parsha and Parshas Kisava, to these curses that are mentioned that are so hard to unfortunately listen to, but have happened during the history of the Jewish people. So that is the true value of the person, like we said, that hopefully this should never happen to a person. None of these curses should never happen to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should watch over us. But any difficulty on even a minor scale, any trial, any test, any difficulty or hardship that one goes through is always an opportunity for growth and to become a better Jew. Thank you for listening.